welcome. I'm Kelvin Ross, Editor-in-Chief of Enlit Europe, and I'm here at Enlit Europe in Milan with Sarah Casey from the Climate Council. Sarah, hi, thanks for joining. We're here to talk about COP26.
Yeah.
Now, you were at COP in Glasgow. What were your takeaways from it, having spent the duration of the climate summit there?
I think there have been a lot of pledges at COP, which are great. We've had the deforestation pledge, the methane reduction pledge. We've had India agreeing to meet net zero by 2070 with some interim goals in between, which is fantastic. We have US and China agreeing to work together, which was a surprise, I think, for a lot of people, and is great and is kind of progress. But I think the main thing is how to make these pledges turn into real action, and that's sometimes difficult without, binding commitments that come with those. So I think the world is really watching now what will happen after those pledges and whether, those ambitions and those goals will really turn into action, which hopefully they will. And I guess with all the eyes on them, on these private companies, on these governments, on corporates, I think that there is real space for real action.
Mm-hmm. There was an impression that but there were a lot of investment announcements that came out of COP, and there was a sense among those people watching COP that the investment community had really pulled together and engaged with the issues in perhaps a way that the policymakers hadn't quite managed to do. Do you think that's true? Do you think the investment community is now all pulling in the one direction?
I think in one way, yes. So day 3 was the finance day at COP, so it really put finance investment at the heart of a COP agenda for the first time, which is great. We had obviously the GFANZ Alliance coming out of that as well, which is mobilizing $130 trillion of private money, so that's banks, insurers, investors coming together, like you say. But I think one thing to mention is, again, it's making those pledges turn into action. What's really important is that private capital can turn billions of kind of public investment into trillions of total climate investment, which is really great to see. I think the finance and investment community coming together in that way is important, and it's something that potentially, yes, hasn't happened before. But one thing to mention when it comes to kind of finance and investment more broadly, I think we can't have this conversation without mentioning the Prime Minister of Barbados, Mia Mottley's speech, which talked about, if there's anything around 2 degrees of warming, that she referred to this as a death sentence. And she mentioned the kind of inability of governments and developed nations to meet their 130 billion pledge of climate investment for developing nations is economically and ethically wrong. And she mentioned actually that inability to meet those pledges is measured in lives and livelihoods. I think that's something to mention. Obviously, it's not related to the private investment, like you said there, but I think it's important to bring that into the conversation.
And is it becoming easier for those investment companies who need to invest, need to be seen to invest in something green, something climate friendly? Is the pathway clear for them what to do? Are the options clear, or is there still a bit of a disconnect between? They're not. Some of them just not quite sure where to go and what to do.
There's still a lot of disconnect, actually. I think one thing the finance and investment community often needs and calls out for is measurements and standards and kind of reporting, and there's a lot of issues around that. There's a lot of issues around what defines ESG, what defines a good environmental investment, and how does that look? What is a bankable project? And there's a lot of work still to be done on that, and I think COP's a good starting point, but I think really the finance and investment community needs to come together separately and have those conversations, and there's a lot happening. There's a lot of the TCFD, there's a lot of different sustainability boards, there's a lot of kind of different alliances, so there is a lot happening. There's still a lot to happen, but ultimately there is a lot of capital out there, and there's a lot of projects and project developers and companies looking for that capital, so it's around how to match those two sides and how to help mobilize capital at scale to clean, green and sustainable kind of energy and generally projects.
Well, Sarah, thanks for joining me today, and look forward to talking to you next year about the outcomes of next year's COP.
Thanks so much, Kelvin.
Thanks very much.